What up, players? It's Warboss Tape back up in this mug with an update video on my Screaming Antelope here for the Kingdom Death Core set, their Monster 1.5. I love this miniature. I love 99.999% of Kingdom Death miniatures. I leave that little fraction out of it just in case I do find something that I just really do not care for. But man, I had a great time painting this guy, and I will walk you through my color scheme and all of the paints that I use if you'd like to recreate this on your own, as well as some tips and techniques that might come in handy for this or any other miniature that you might be painting. So my goal with this miniature was always to make it look close to realistic, but also have a kind of otherworldly grandeur about it. I wanted to evoke the sense that when you're looking at him, you're looking at one of those old, dark, gothic paintings come to life, and I feel like that's what a lot of the horrific, nightmarish miniatures are trying to evoke, that feeling of dread and of just really otherworldly weirdness when you're looking at these miniatures. So I started by base coating the entire model in white because I knew that I would be shading, but wanting to leave most of it, like all the skin areas, pretty light colored. Oh, you know what this miniature also reminds me of now that I think about it? That, what is his name? Black Billy Goat? Billy... Oh man, I forgot the guy's name from The Witch, the Billy Goat. Oh man, that movie just freaks me out. Every time I think about The Witch, it terrifies me. That'll lead me into the second half of this video, that discussion of dread and horror and stuff. But after base coating this guy in white, I went over him with Rakarth Flesh, which is a very nice dead, I guess like bloodless flesh, kind of pallid looking skin color. And after painting all the skin areas in that Rakarth Flesh, I went over the hands with Natural Flesh from Vallejo, and then I went over the hooves were all in black, all the red fleshy bits were in Mephiston red, and the mane was done in Mechanicus Standard Gray. And then I shaded all of the skin with Agrax Earthshade. The fleshy hands, the survivor's hands poking out of its belly there, I shaded with Rakeland Flesh Shade. The grayish mane I shaded with Nuln Oil. And then I painted the eyes black. And I actually did the horns in Rakarth Flesh shaded with Seraphim Sepia. 2 applications of Seraphim Sepia, highlighted back up with Ungor Flesh. And yeah, other than that, the skin was highlighted back up with Rakarth Flesh, and then I added in a little bit of Pallid Witch Flesh to give it even more of a pale, bonish ivory color to it. So my whole concept with thinking about what I wanted this miniature to look like was I wanted it to look like a creature that's been around, an ancient, old, just battle-worn creature that's been living in this nightmare hellscape for a very long time, and I wanted its skin to be completely dead and I guess unresponsive. Like the skin that's covering the flesh and the bones of this creature is the flesh of the creature is just stretched to bursting. So it sustains itself by eating survivors, and that's why its body cavity just splits down the middle to swallow survivors whole, and it's very gruesome and it's very nightmarish. And so what I wanted to evoke the sense was that you've got this thin outer layer, a very thin, almost like paper thin skin that's stretching and trying to accommodate all of the stuff that it's holding inside, all of the rot and all of the flesh and all of the gruesome goodness, the sticky red goodness that's inside. And I think I did a good job by creating little tears in the skin. And I did that by painting on lines first of Abaddon black and then Mephiston red around the black to show where the tear was. And then you can really see it in the foreleg there. I've got 2 horizontal slashes of black surrounded by Mephiston red, and then I painted over the red areas with Tamiya Clear Red. I used Tamiya Clear Red to put some accent spots on where I think the flesh of the creature would be tearing, most likely to tear and not be healed over yet, and around all of the survivor's hands poking up through the body. I painted that to me a clear red. I highlighted the rest of the fur back up with Mechanicus Standard Gray, rather, and then Dawnstone, and then just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of Pallid Witch flesh, so that it kind of ties into the flesh of the body, but then also it creates its own light, the light reflecting off of the highest, whitest areas of that mane. And you can see I was very selective with putting that lightest highlight on. You don't want to have too much of that highlight color, otherwise it doesn't create as much of a contrast, and instead it creates just a very bright and vibrant looking color, which is what we didn't want. So on both sides of the creature, I looked for those what I call stress points, where the skin would tear and a little bit of that blood would seep through. And it's almost like if you imagine a giant, I don't know why I compared it to a burrito, because a burrito kind of has the same kind of color, and the skin of the burrito, sometimes if you have a burrito that's just packed to stuffed to just bursting, it'll start like sprouting holes, and the sauce and the meat will start coming through. So I don't know why, that's what I thought, and I think I was just really hungry and I wanted Mexican food that night that I was painting this thing. So that's what I think. Like, just think of a burrito that is bursting open in areas. And man, when I was painting this guy, I was really, really thinking, okay, how can I get across this really dark, gothic, horror aspect of the game? Because so far the miniatures that I've painted, like the White Lion and the Butcher, I don't think they've really conveyed the mood that I want to give my client for this commission, and for anybody who plays with these pieces. I want the pieces that I paint, I want all of my commissions to be talking points for all of my clients. I think it's very important, even as a painter, as a gamer, as a hobbyist. I think it's really important that we make our miniatures focal points of that showcase our artistry and our craftsmanship. And I know a lot of people will think like, oh, I don't care about none of that, I just want to paint my minis and put them on the table and play with them. But I used to be like that, and I really think that as I got older, what I wanted was to have miniatures that I was proud of, that I wanted to be able to take out and put on the table. And I loved hearing that reaction from the people playing across from me when they would see my miniatures, and they would say like, oh wow, that obviously looked like it took some time. And they would ask me, how did you get his eyes to glisten like that, or how did you get the skin to look like it was just breaking and bursting open at that one point? And then the discussion isn't so much about tactics and how can I beat you in the game, and what are the best stats, and what are the best ways that I can beat your army, but it rather becomes more like, how can I share what I know of the hobby so that you can become better, and how can I learn from you so that I can become better as well? That's, to me, so much more enriching than just, okay, I'm gonna roll some dice and I'm gonna beat you because I was lucky and I chose better models, or I chose a better army loadout and I was able to afford these bigger, more expensive models than you. And even though tactics are also a point of the community where you can talk about like what are the best new tactics that are out there, and you can build like a friendship and a camaraderie over that. I love talking about the painting of the miniatures and the modeling aspect. Like for one example, I wanted to make this creature's eyes look like it was always looking at you. And when you look at the model, you see that the eyes are sculpted really large and it's just bugging out of its skull. And I thought, okay, how can I really make it look like this creature is just inhuman and unfathomable and just really strange, and so that you look at it and you think like, oh, you get a shiver down your spine. And I thought, okay, let's gloss varnish it and let's put just enough so that it coats the entire eyeball, so that when the light reflects off of it, it will create the illusion that no matter how you're holding the screaming antelope, no matter which angle you're turning it, if you can see its eyeball, it will always look like it's looking at you. And I love that effect. It's such a simple effect, but the effect of the gloss varnish, combined with the fact that the sculptors of this model made the eye look the way that it does, you can see that the bottom lid of the eye is kind of swooped under like a big U, so it makes it look like the eye is really literally bulging out of this creature's face. It looks like it could be looking in any direction. So when you put that gloss varnish on it, it will look like it's always looking at you. I wanted it to have very shocking kind of effect when you pick it up and you really take a look at the gaping maw of its body cavity, its mouth. So I left the rib cage structure, or the teeth, what are supposed to be teeth, I guess, I left them in Rakarth flesh. I left the hands in their fleshy colors rather than covering the hands in blood, which they would probably be if they're bursting out of the creature. They'd be smeared in blood. But I wanted to create the difference in the contrast of the skin tones of the survivors that are trying to desperately claw their way out of the creature, as opposed to the skin color of the creature itself, which is like I said, that very sickly, dead and blood drained, paper thin flesh look. So I really love horror, and I really love things that make me feel uneasy, and I love scary movies, I love scary stories. And when I was painting this thing, I was so excited to tell my lady boss every time I added a layer, every time I thought, oh, what if I do these little nicks across its forelegs here on the right, and then I could cover it in blood. And she would just nod her head and smile politely, but she's like, please don't talk to me about this kind of stuff. Like, definitely not while I'm eating. But she said, like, at any time of the day, I'm not really interested in all of this, like, really nightmarish, horrible, horrific things, especially with animals. My lady boss, oh man, bless her, she is just a sweetheart, and she has such a big heart and such a feeling for animals. So the fact that this screaming antelope looks like a poor Bambi deer that's just been hit in the head with a nightmare stick over and over again, like, she does not like that. So every time I have to take that into consideration when I want to talk to her about something. Hey, if I'm painting up a Cinderella model or a model of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, she is all about that. But the minute I bring this guy out, or anything in Kingdom Death that's not a pinup, she's like, no thank you, I'm just not interested. And so I guess that brings me to why I love horror, why I love all kinds of different horror stories, from H.P. Lovecraft to, you might have already known that I really love the movie The Witch, and I love the movie Event Horizon. And at different points in my life, I love different aspects of different horror subgenres. I think they're so much fun to scare yourself and to make yourself feel vulnerable. And I think one way we do that is through our art and through our miniatures. We can paint something that looks unsettling, and we don't have to cover it in blood and gore. And to me, a clear red, we can do it in other ways. So I hope that's interested you. I hope that's kind of piqued your interest and inspired and motivated you to step up your game and your painting, and think about how you can incorporate the things that you like about different genres of entertainment and culture into your art. I don't know, what do you think, Dookie? What is it? He looks so ridiculous, this dog. Oh my gosh. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already. Stay tuned for more Kingdom Death. I've got also commissions on my BL10 Eldar, some Dark Angels characters that I've been painting up. I know that Codex just dropped, and a whole lot of other stuff, Primaris Marines, and there's just so much coming out of my studio. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Latest, players.